12.3 goes over irrational square roots. When we are finding these irrational square roots, we are going to leave them as a radical. So we're going to have our answers in radical form. If we look at example 1, we are just simplifying these. So for example A, we're given the square root of 324. So the first thing that you'd want to do is to find the factors of 324. So I would find the prime factorization of this number. You're finding the square root, so that tells you that you're grouping up sets of 2 of the same number and pulling one of those numbers out to represent the set or the pair of 2 of the same number. So 324 is divisible by 4 because 4 goes into 32 8 times and 4 goes into 4 once. So that 4 is 2 times 2. That 81 is 9 times 9. Well, you have 2 2's here and 2 9's, so that's 2 times 9, which is 18. So in this case, this square root of 324 is not a square root of an irrational number, because you can take the square root of that 324 and be left with a whole number. For example B, we have the square root of 75. That 75 has factors of 5, or it also has factors of 25. It has factors of 3. If we do 3 and 25, that 25 factors out to be 5 and 5. We now have all prime numbers. Those 5's pair up. We take 1 out. That 3 is left over, so it's going to stay under the square root sign. So we just have 5 square root 3 as our answer. For example C, we have 2 times the square root of 112. That 112 is an even number, so we can start by dividing it by 2. 2 goes into 11 5 times with 1 left over. 2 goes into 12 6 times. That 56 is also divisible by 2 because 2 goes into 5 twice with 1 left over. 2 goes into 16 8 times. That 28 is 4 and 7. The 4 is 2 and 2. So we have 2 2's that pair up here, 2 2's that pair up here, and the 7 that's left over. So we're going to pull 2 different 2's out since we had 2 pairs or 2 sets of 2. And then that 7 stays under the radical. We multiply the 2 2's and we get 4 square root 7. So with this, because you have that 4 times the square root of 7 and you have that 2 out front, you are going to multiply that 2 that's out front by the 4 square root 7. So it actually gives you 8 square root 7 here. For example D, we have the square root of 891. For this one, I am going to divide this by 3 to start with. 3 goes into 8 twice with 2 left over. 3 goes into 29 9 times with 2 left over. 3 goes into 21 7 times. From here, I'm going to divide the 297 by 3 as well. 3 goes into 29 9 times with 2 left over. 3 goes into 27 9 times. That 99 is just 3 times 33, and the 33 is 3 times 11. So again, we have the square root, so we're going to group sets of 2. We have 2 3's, so we're going to pull one of those out. We have another set of 2 3's, so we pull one of those out. That 11 does not pair up with another 11, so it's going to stay under the radical. From here, multiply the 3 times 3. We get 9 square root of 11. For the next set of examples, for example 2a, we have the square root of 684. We can divide this 684 by 4. It would go in a total of 171 times. That 4 is 2 times 2. That 171 we can divide by 3. That would be 57. And that 57 we can divide by 3 as well. And we get 19. So we have a pair of 2's, a pair of 3's, and that 19 is left over. So we're going to do 2 times 3 times the square root of 19. The 2 times 3 is 6. Keep it with the square root of 19. You have 6 root 19. For example B, we have the square root of 0.8. For this one, that 8 is in the tenths place, so this is going to be 8 over 10 underneath that radical. That square root of 8 over the square root of 10 is going to give us 2 square root 2 over the square root of 10, or 5 times 2. If you want to rewrite this, we would have 2 square root 2 all over the square root of 2 times the square root of 5. Now, because you have the square root of 2 in the numerator and the denominator, they will cancel. So you're working with 2 over the square root of 5. You cannot leave a radical in the denominator, so you need to rationalize that denominator. It is the square root, so we're going to multiply that square root of 5 by itself a total of 2 times. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So this is going to become 2 square root 5 all over 5. For example C, we have the square root of 1200. So this 1200 is 12 times 100. That 100 is 10 times 10. The 12 is 2 and 6. The 6 is 2 and 3. So our 3 is going to be left over. Our 2's pair up and our 10's pair up. So it's going to be 2 times 10 times the square root of 3, which gives us 20 square root 3. For example D, we have the square root of 98. 98 we can divide by 2. We would get 49. 49 is 7 times 7. So these two 7's pair up. We have a 2 left over, so it's going to give us 7 square root 2. With our next set of questions that we're going to be going over, we are going to be rationalizing the denominator here. So you cannot have a fraction that has a radical in the denominator. In order to simplify these, we're going to do the same thing that we've done this prior in this lesson and the lesson that we did before this, where we multiply the numerator by the same thing you multiply the denominator with in order to get rid of the radical in the denominator. So you're going to keep in mind the root or the index of that radical, and then use that as the total number of times that you're going to multiply that square root in the denominator by itself. If we look at example A, we have the square root of 36 over 75. This is the same thing as saying the square root of 36 over the square root of 75. The 36 is 6 times 6, so that simplifies. The 75 is 3 times 25. 25 is 5 times 5. So those 5's pair up, you have that 3 left over. So this is going to give us 6 over 5 square root 3. You have that radical of 3 in the denominator, so you have to rationalize it. Your index there is 2, so you should be multiplying that square root of 3 by itself a total of 2 times. That would give us a multiplication of the square root of 3 on the denominator, which you do to the bottom, you must do the top. So you multiply the 6 by the square root of 3 as well. So this is going to give us 6 square root 3 all over 5 times 3. The 5 times 3, you can multiply it. It would give you 15. You're still going to simplify that with the 6 in the numerator, and the 6 is going to become a 2, making that 3 a 1, or that 15 a 5. So this just gives us 2 square root 3 all over 5. For example B, we have the square root of 8 over 5. This is the same thing as saying take the square root of 5 over the square root of 8. The 5 is just 1 and 5, so it's going to stay the square root of 5. The 8 is 2 and 4. 4 is 2 and 2. 2 2's pair up. So this is going to give us the square root of 5 over 2 square root 2. We have to rationalize the denominator, so multiply the square root of 2 by itself a total of 2 times. And we'll do the same on the top that you did to the bottom. And we're going to have the square root of 5 times 2, which is 10, all over 2 times 2, which is the square root of 10 over 4. For example C, we have the square root of 16 over 26. Now we can divide both of these by 2 and simplify it to be the square root of 8 over the square root of 13. That square root of 8 we just said was 2 square root 2 over the square root of 13. We're going to multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by the square root of 13 to rationalize that denominator. And this is going to give us 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 13, which is the square root of 26, all over 13. For our last example, we have the square root of 6 over 12. This 6 over 12 is 1/2. So we're doing the square root of 1 over the square root of 2. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 2 doesn't simplify. So we're going to have to rationalize that denominator by multiplying it by itself. So we do the same to the top, and we get the square root of 2 over 2.